Have you ever heard of a battle so perfectly fought, so brilliantly clever, that military generals are still studying it over 2,000 years later? Well, today we're diving into exactly that. This is the story of Cannae, the ultimate battle, and the one man who brought the mighty Roman Republic to its absolute knees. Imagine being the Roman ambassador who heard that warning back in 219 BCE. He probably just shrugged it off, but he had no idea what he'd just done. His demand for war didn't just start a conflict. It unleashed Hannibal Barca, a man who was basically forged from birth to be the living, breathing embodiment of revenge against Rome. So that's the big question, right? How on earth does one guy, one general, almost topple the world's rising superpower? Well, the story doesn't really start with Hannibal. It starts with his dad, and a burning hatred born from a totally humiliating defeat. To really get Hannibal, you have to rewind to the end of the First Punic War. See, Carthage, Hannibal's home, used to be this huge naval power, but Rome completely crushed them. And the peace treaty? It wasn't about peace. It was designed to cripple them forever. Just look at this number. Rome forced Carthage to pay 3,200 silver talents. That wasn't just a fine, it was a financial death sentence, meant to make sure Carthage could never, ever afford to be a threat again. On top of that, Rome just took their islands, Sicily, Sardinia, Corsica. For Hannibal's father, General Hamilcar Barca, this was beyond insulting. So what does a guy like Hamilcar do? He's simmering with this need for revenge. He takes his 9-year-old son, little Hannibal, to a temple, and there he makes the boy place his hand on a sacrifice and swear a solemn oath to never, ever be a friend of Rome. That one moment would steer the entire course of Hannibal's life. All right, fast forward a few years. Hannibal is all grown up, he's taken command of his father's army, and he is ready. He kicks things off with a plan so completely bonkers, so out of the box, the Romans literally couldn't believe it was happening. He decides he's going to invade Italy. Not by sea, which would be the easy way, but by land, right over the frozen, treacherous Alps. And let me tell you, this journey was a complete nightmare. He had war elephants, thousands of soldiers, and pack animals, and they were dying every single day, from the cold, from starvation, from falling off cliffs. Any other general would have turned back, but not Hannibal. He pushed through, and somehow he made it. He showed up in Italy with a much smaller army, but he'd done the impossible. And Rome was caught totally by surprise. Now, you have to understand something about Rome's political setup, because it became their biggest weakness. Their top generals were 2 guys called consuls, but they were elected for just 1 year. That meant they were always desperate to win a big, glorious battle really fast to make a name for themselves. And Hannibal? Oh, he was going to use that arrogance against them, over and over again. So the first real fight happens at the river Ticinus. It's a small skirmish, mostly cavalry, but it immediately proves Hannibal's horsemen are way better. During the chaos, the Roman consul, a guy named Scipio, gets badly hurt. He's about to be killed when his own son, who's only 16, charges in and saves his life. Now, remember that kid's name, Scipio the Younger. It's going to be important later. So after that first little taste of victory, Hannibal was just warming up. What he does next is unleash 2 straight tactical masterpieces that sent absolute shockwaves of terror through the Roman Republic. So at the river Trebia, you've got 2 Roman commanders again. The injured Scipio is the cautious one. He's like, hey, let's wait, let's be smart. But his co-consul, Longus, can't stand the idea of Scipio getting any of the credit. Longus wants all the glory for himself, and he wants it now. So he ignores every single warning. And he walks right into Hannibal's trap. Hannibal tricks the entire Roman army into wading across a freezing cold river on an empty stomach. So they're wet, they're frozen, they're hungry, and just as they crash into Hannibal's main line, 2,000 of Hannibal's best troops, who'd been hiding in a ditch all night, jump out and smash into the Roman rear. It was a perfect, brutal ambush. 20,000 Romans died. You'd think Rome would have learned its lesson, right? Nope. Hannibal does it again. At a place called Lake Trasimene, he uses a super thick morning fog to hide his entire army in the hills next to a narrow road. He baits the Roman army into marching right into the kill zone, and then he springs the trap. It's now called the largest ambush in all of history. The consul and nearly 30,000 of his men were either killed or captured. Okay, so after getting crushed twice, Rome is in full-on panic mode. They finally drop the arrogance and decide they're going to end this once and for all. They decide to raise the biggest army they have ever seen to just steamroll Hannibal. And this sets the stage for the Battle of Cannae. If war can be art, well, this was about to be Hannibal's Mona Lisa.
Rome put together an army of 86,000 men, an absolutely massive force. They were so unbelievably confident that senators and politicians actually tagged along with the army, basically buying front-row tickets to watch them finally destroy this monster from Africa. The Roman plan was, well, simple. It was pure brute force, a giant, deep block of soldiers meant to act like a human sledgehammer and just shatter Hannibal's army. Hannibal's plan, though, was pure genius and deception. He put his weakest troops right in the middle, in a thin line that bulged forward, and he hid his best soldiers, his elite African infantry, way out on the sides. And here is how the magic trick worked. Step 1. The Roman sledgehammer slams into Hannibal's weak center. Just like he planned, his men start to slowly fall back, pulling the Romans deeper and deeper in. Step 2. Hannibal's elite troops on the flanks, who've just been standing there, suddenly turn inwards and attack the sides of the Roman line. Step 3. At the same time, his cavalry crushes the Roman cavalry and swings around to attack from behind. And step 4. The trap snaps shut. In an instant, an army of over 80,000 Romans is completely surrounded by a force less than half its size. What happened next wasn't a battle anymore. It was a slaughter, a systematic, horrific slaughter. The Romans were packed in so tightly they couldn't even lift their arms to swing a sword. There was nowhere to run. There was no escape. Historians have estimated that for hours, Hannibal's men were killing about 100 Roman soldiers every single minute. I mean, just try to imagine the sheer terror and chaos inside that shrinking circle. It's just unimaginable. By the time the sun went down, the killing finally stopped. On that one field, in a single day of fighting, lay the bodies of 70,000 Roman soldiers. 70,000. To put that number in perspective, that single day wiped out 1/5, 20% of the entire population of military-aged men in the Roman Republic. This was a catastrophe. For any other empire in history, this would have been the end. They would have surrendered on the spot. But we're talking about Rome, and Rome just did not break. And among the few thousand men who somehow managed to fight their way out of that death trap was that same kid who saved his father years earlier, Scipio. Nobody knew it then, of course, but the entire future of Rome would one day depend on him. So, Hannibal did it. He had achieved the greatest tactical victory in military history, period. He'd crushed Rome's armies, he killed their leaders, and he pretty much had the city of Rome at his mercy. He had fulfilled that blood oath he swore as a boy. But here's the final, haunting question. Winning the perfect battle is one thing, but how do you win a war against an enemy that simply refuses to die?